Hey, Decathlon Gamer, welcome back to F1 Manager episode 78. Following the slowdown of upgrades, we were able to get our next wave in as we once again had some hours to spend, and the first of those three is done with the suspension now complete. And for a slight increase in cash, we can get it rushed and get the first two in time to get them on the car for the British Grand Prix. And 2 days later, the new front wing is done as well. This is another one that can be done relatively quickly, but it's been a couple days, so I don't know if we have enough time to get it on both cars. And plus the front wing, you generally want to have a couple of spares on hand, so maybe we can get it on one car for this race weekend. Not producing the entire quantity that I want to have a couple of spares for this, so I'm probably going to aim for at least 8. You put 8 on a rush deal and you're paying extra for all 8. You rush 5, so you have a quantity, you have something to work with, you have 2 and plenty of time for the race weekend, you have a 3rd prior to the race weekend, and a 4th partway through the race weekend. Might just about get you through the weekend, hopefully. Silverstone, you're not hopefully facing any walls anytime soon that would obviously damage them sooner rather than later. But you produce 5 now, with the 5th coming right at the end of the weekend, and then you go back and produce 3 or 4 more at normal development speeds following the race weekend. That's a pretty good start, because that's going to give us a couple upgrades, including front wing. Front wing's a fantastic one that's going to make you faster, more so than the those partial parts. And once again, we progressed 2 days, and the 3rd and final one is done, the rear wing. We used all of our hours on those 3 projects, but if you remember, we started all projects a little bit late, and the new development period is about to begin. So we'll actually be able to go in almost immediately and get the next projects on the way. Like what we did this last time, I'm probably going to end up looking at doing 3 larger projects in the areas most needed and avoid the other project. But I know some of those areas that are needed, so I'm going to need to kind of till after the race weekend to make the decisions to get started on the next set of projects, because a few of our parts are great, many parts are not. So the great parts don't necessarily need more time and effort and money put into them when we have limited resources as it is, limited time as it is. We might sit on those through at least one more period and look at the ones that need to be addressed most of all. Now, fortunately, rear wings don't need to be replaced quite as often, and if they do, it's because somebody's slamming into the back of you, wiping you out, giving you a DNF anyway. Therefore, as long as it's not happening in practice, 2 should be enough to get us into the race weekend, which means with 5 days to go, all 3 new components are going to be on the car for Silverstone. Now, that means our knowledge for the car is going to take a big hit, as 3 parts are going to be brand new. Could impact this particular race weekend a bit with less knowledge, less bonuses at least. Why not get them on the car and have the car be better? That's a bonus of its own. It's going to be its own trade-off. Now, it might be the following race weekend before we really start to see the impact of it, as I think the trade-off for losing bonuses versus faster car, that might balance itself out for the first race weekend. But by the second one, you should be better off. And we're going to do the same thing on the rear wing that we did for the front, with 5 parts straight up front, and get those done with the extra $250,000. Latest car analysis before we get into the race weekend. With all the new components being added to the car, we are now faster than grid average by a small margin, and we have matched the acceleration that is grid average, and we are definitely faster in cornering than grid average, but not by a crazy margin, though the high speed I think has a pretty healthy advantage, and we're definitely not on top. Maybe. We'll see. I'd like to look at the rank. Maybe we are. Top speed is now better than DRS. Acceleration, which was, I believe, equal before, has now exceeded grid average. And then dirty air cornering, 3% to the good. Medium speed is 2.33% to the good. High speed is more than 2.5% to the good. Dirty air cornering is definitely good compared to the grid average. Brake cooling is now better than grid average, and engine cooling is close. It's 1% off, less than 1% off grid average. But how does it compare to individual teams? Starting with the slower teams at the back, Aston Martin has better brake cooling and nothing else, fairly comfortably, not that far ahead, really. The Alfa Romeo matches our acceleration, but otherwise we definitely have a better car at virtually everything. The cooling being, a little bit behind. Their engine cooling is quite good. AlphaTauri still have better pace than we do, but only by a tenth of a kilometer per hour, and their acceleration is just ahead of ours. But you could see we are well ahead on cornering comparatively to the AlphaTauri. So you can see why something like Azerbaijan, Baku, right? That long straight, or Mexico, are tracks that they are going to do relatively well at, but they're going to really struggle at, say, Monaco or Hungaroring. Haas, besides having almost identical speed, you can see where they are certainly off when it comes to cornering and dirty air cornering. They have a hard time following cars. Haas really isn't that bad. I'm surprised that they are only 8th place. Could be the driver lineup. As we start moving into the better cars, this is Alpine. We have a small pace advantage, 0.2, small cornering advantage in all aspects, and in DRS, and in dirty air cornering. They have us in brake cooling. We have a slight edge in engine cooling. We're ahead at everything, but only marginally so. Mercedes with Ocon only find themselves in 13th in the driver's standings, and they are off on pace. They are well behind in cornering, especially low speed cornering. One of the worst we've seen. And it is the worst we've seen. Low speed, they are 19th. Wow. The mighty have fallen. I didn't look at mine. I got a head jump on it. Red Bull. Wait, this is the one I should be checking last. Well, it was the next on the list. They are faster, still by a decent margin. Cornering, low speed is definitely favorable for us. High speed, they are still ahead of us, but barely, so we are not number one there. They still have us on DRS top speed. We are still matched on acceleration. We are better following them than they are following us. And they still have us on brake cooling and engine cooling, but only just. We'll come back to them in a moment with the actual rank comparisons, as that's the ones we care about. But Ferrari and McLaren, how are they looking? McLaren, Bottas in 10th. They are almost identical in pace. But we've got a decent edge, not a major edge, in cornering. And again, a few percent when it comes to the dirty air. Finally, the Ferrari is just ahead of us in pace, and we are just a little bit ahead of them in cornering, not by much. But you can see now we are very much getting to that car that has a real chance at doing good things, because Red Bull is the fastest. It has wings, but we are now getting into the upper portion of the grid. We had caught the pack. We're starting to pass the pack, but we're not up there just yet. 7th and 11th now. But the cornering that was so good at the start of last year and then faded, it's finally back up there. It's finally back to best average, especially when you compare to who is the other. We are number one in cornering. They are number two. Their low speed cornering is a problem. DRS, they still have the edge because they have the overall best speed, but acceleration wise we are just ahead of them. And then the dirty air cornering, again supporting the cornering theory that we are the best when it comes to cornering, but we were the worst when it came to speed. Now that's better. This is a car that can win some races, but it is also quite clear that this is not a list of firsts. We still are race specific. It's still not a given that we are going to go out there and win anything, but we've got a good car. Wait, we have already exceeded the halfway point, and realistically, we've only exceeded the halfway point of the season, or haven't even gotten past the halfway point of the season. But so much of that money goes into the car before the season ever starts. So right now, our projected does not have us going anywhere near what that cap is, but it does have us exceeding 100 million this year. That would leave us with 36 million in place, as we can only spend so much. I showed you this one a while back, so real quick here, 49 million spent on car development in year 1. Season 2 had 52 million, season 3 had 54 million, season 4. Current season, we have already exceeded the value at 54.3 million compared to last season. Facilities development, you can see we're still some ways off where we were because we are putting so much money into the car, and we just did a major facilities development upgrade. Contracts wise, you can see how we are well below where we were spending. That's going to continue to climb, but that car development will climb some more. We have spent a lot of money on the car this year compared to past years, but we are seeing the benefit of it. It's paying off. It is paying off, and we are getting to the point where this car is going to start being, especially with those 3 latest upgrades, we do have a car capable of winning some races, not just the 2 wins that we had on the season so far. I think we're going to exceed our total of last season of 5 by the end of. I don't believe we have won at Silverstone as of yet. Porsche finished 4th a year ago with Albon in 12th. Albon was more than half a minute down on his teammate, and Porsche was more than half a minute down on Verstappen. Verstappen well ahead at the finish line with an over 20-second advantage over Norris in second. That's McLaren, and McLaren, they weren't even very good last year, so that was quite the performance from them, with McLaren Sainz sandwiching with Porsche. So I think we can do better. I do think we have the car for it now. This is a track that high-speed cornering definitely matters. Big time. Medium speed cornering definitely matters. Low speed, not so much here. Which means Red Bull's going to be quick. They have the straight line speed. They don't have low speed cornering to deal with. I think for us, podium is definitely possible, but winning the race might be difficult. I would say maybe second and third. Definitely closer than anybody was to Verstappen last year, though.
We're here in legendary Silverstone, where the very first Formula One World Championship Grand Prix was held back in 1950. It's a place where every tuft of grass breathes motorsport, and the crowd are already crackling with excitement. Silverstone demands a lot of power from cars, with numerous twists and historic turns. Downforce is going to be a key factor to manage if teams want to succeed here. We're about halfway through the season now, and there's still plenty of time for everything to change. All eyes are on the teams and how they tackle the rest of the year. Final preparations are underway.
Williams made short work of the qualifying session here and have been rewarded with strong grid positions to start the race. We saw a solid qualifying performance from Ferrari, and they're sure to have their chance to push even further during the race. And the clouds today look very ominous, which means that teams may have to contend with rain at some point during the race.
Well, we're 52 laps away then from crowning the winner of the British Grand Prix. But one thing is for certain, it's going to be sensational.
And what I can only describe as disappointing twice today while recording, only once for this series though, twice today I've hit the record button for nothing to happen and no record to begin, which it's been a long time since that's ever happened, but it's happened twice today. I don't know what's going on. Maybe something with my keyboard, something with the computer, whatever the case may be. I hit record not during Q1, but during Q2, because I felt confident in the car enough that Q1 was not going to be an issue. So I started recording in Q2. I was talking to you. The recording software was just not responding back, and I missed all of qualifying and missed what is a brilliant P1 from Porsche. Only P5 from Doohan, but only a 10th down. Only a 10th in it from first to fifth. Legit pull, good pace. We're quick. We are quick here. Porsche, though, starting on pole, I would imagine with DRS and straight line speed, won't necessarily hold it but he is certainly quicker. And we're going to go for the two-stopper, as it's very similar in pace to the one-stopper, but we're fast. We might as well use that pace, especially if we're out front. Doohan's going to have to push a little bit to try to get through the field. Pourchaire is already up near the top, so we will settle in very early with him, and hopefully he'll just kind of smoothly go between P1 P2 for a while Doohan eventually gets himself up into that same position. And then we'll be pitting on the early side, so I might stretch by a lap or two to push in the later stints.
It's a bit of a cloudy day for the race, but the atmosphere as ever is electric. Here's Williams. They're in pole position, and they've got to be happy about that. And looking at the second Williams car. Not as close to the front as they might have wished for, but we know the race order can change a lot during those first few corners. Everything's been building to this. Hold on tight. It's the British Grand Prix. It's lights out, and away we go.
All right, we are racing, and of course we are with Pourchaire. So let's see how he's doing off the line. And he's on the outside. He's going to have to hold to the outside, which means it's still side by side. But as he continues on with the inside through there, I think we are still side by side. Yes, we are. That is not Leclerc beside us. That is now Verstappen getting around Leclerc. But it does look like we have just about pulled ahead. And yes, now the battle is for second. And that gives us 0.4 of a second ahead. And with that, can we get more than a second on these guys? I doubt it, but wouldn't that be something if we could and drive away and hold our own pace? Defend is what is on. Let's go ahead and go neutral and save the battery for later, as we clearly have a good start. Already 0.9 ahead as Leclerc and Verstappen continue to battle. If we can get well over a second ahead, we might have something when it comes to not being in DRS. But meanwhile, Doohan gets up the inside of Russell for P4. I was really surprised by Russell's pace on what he managed to do, but there is Doohan making his way through and starting to battle with those other two. 9.95 is where we were a moment ago as we get up and start to challenge Verstappen. We are side by side here. All the front riders are all on the mediums. And that's Doohan up to P3. 1.144 for Pourchaire. We're going to continue to push for now, because if we can get these guys out of DRS range and somehow manage to have better pace than them, then Pourchaire can pull away on his own. So I think for now it's worth it to continue to drive on and push. We know we're going to pit early anyway, so we might as well. Now, the fuel is maybe the bigger concern. Compared to, the tires. As we know, we're going to make a two-stopper and we're going to pit early, and we have some flexibility on pushing harder. Look how far away we've already pulled away from Verstappen, 0.6 ahead of him when we just overtook him a handful of corners ago. And definitely challenging Leclerc now, who's 1.2 down. It sure feels like we are, in fact, quick for this race weekend. 1.2. That gap may just grow as Doohan runs wide. Rejoins, almost has a collision with the Ferrari. That is not a safe rejoining of the track, but that is this game for you. And Doohan, last episode, I believe, I spoke to the upgrade plan when it comes to the driver ratings, and I wanted to push everything up to an 85, and then I thought about it and reassessed and said, hey, look, we have 3 different types of mistakes that can be made, 3 different types of ratings when it comes to pace, all impacting pace. Now, general pace is very important, but of those, 2 impact how you drive, not just how fast you drive. So the acceleration piece is just how fast you drive. That's less important. The other 2 have relevance to making mistakes, though. And making less mistakes is more important. You can see doing time and time again this season, mistake after mistake after mistake, is absolutely killing his season right now. 1.5 gap to Verstappen, by the way, for Cher. The point being, some mistakes, like running wide, cost you time and positions. Doing already recovering back to P6, but is now going to have a gap to cover off. It's not good. It's hurt his race, but his race is far from done. 1, he's still in the points. 2, he still has a good amount of pace. And we're going to go aggressive now with Doing.
We're happy to push on.
Try to finish collecting this position and getting back up into P6, and then start trying to cover that gap. Let's see if we can't open up on these guys and leave them behind a bit. The only good news about the situation that we're in, well, is 2 things. 1, we can double stack if we wanted right now, when the time comes. 2, more importantly, he's still in the race. He ran wide, it cost us time, it cost us positions, but he is still in the race. That is important, because 1 impacts running wide. 1 attribute impacts, let's speed things back up here. Leclerc closing it back down, 1.3. Not quite able to drive away from those guys. They're getting just enough straight line toe, but they're not that close, so they're not getting dirty air. That's helping pull those guys down. And remember, straight line speed isn't quite there. They're now within a second. Doing back to the front of the group. So he's got his 3-man train at the helm, and whoever it was that was behind Magnussen, he got closed up. He got just within that window, and now Doing's leading the train. But they're 5 seconds back of the tail end of the front 5. And Pourchaire has been passed by Leclerc. But Bottas, ooh, look at this. Front 2, pulling away. Now, if they can yo-yo their way with DRS and pull away from that next group, leaving Verstappen behind would be huge. Getting out there with Leclerc. Pit window is entered. We're going to fall below that 60% threshold here pretty soon and start to lose some pace. But that's why you pit early on a track like this. You are maintaining ultimate pace. The moment we hit 60%, we are going to go aggressive until the time that we pit. Because once you get below that mark, you're losing pace. Going aggressive will recover that pace, and then you just push on until the pit window. Okay, Pourchaire, can we get back around Leclerc? By the way, it's 1.9 to Verstappen. I think going aggressive, there's a good chance that with DRS we're going to get ahead, and we do. Russell into the pits. Zhou, Sainz, Gasly, Albon, Norris. Ignore. I think I want to extend by 1 lap. I don't think we're too worried about getting undercut at this pace. That's a lot of cars opting. Oh, wait, how many? Just 3 cars. Just 3 cars on the hards. They're at 65%. They're not doing much better. Beckett's and Beckett's. You don't want to be side by side through there, but we were. Leclerc heading into the pits. Leclerc heading into the pits. This is a good thing to stagger this because we always get caught out by it. Gap to leader, 8.3. More than enough time to run a double stack. We prolonged by just a single lap, but I think at the same time that's good for us. It's going to give us that little bit of a window of getting out there and getting on your own. By the way, we've recovered 0.5 kilogram of fuel in 19 laps. meaning we can just about cover it off without any lift and coast the rest of the way. 2.722, not a very good stop doing. 2.580, that was better, and we had to sit and wait for a Ferrari, and that is Perez, who is just behind us now, just ahead. Doing, wants to push on to get going. Porsche for the moment is P4. Verstappen, Bottas, Magnussen are still out there. We are ahead of everybody else. We did find some space. Leclerc is behind us. What is the gap with Leclerc? Starting to make his way forward just a bit here. Tsunoda has not pit yet. Bottas, Verstappen, Magnussen have not pit yet. And then now the guys on the hards just pit. Perez, that is also Sainz.
Okay, that's good.
And
That's good.
we are now running just the three of us.
And a new
Ricardo, Gasly
position
too far
just
back.
gained by Williams.
And those front three will pit very soon. I would imagine those guys are trying to go for the one stopper, as they have not pit yet, but we're only 15 seconds behind. So that's the big key, is watch that gap. Speaking of watch that gap, let's get with Porsche and get an eye on that gap. Leclerc just behind, but we've pulled away from Russell, Tsunoda, and then you have Perez and do it. And Bottas pits, so he did not wait significantly longer. Bottas into the pits. Now just two guys. Into the pits for Verstappen, and Porsche back into the race lead, and he and Leclerc are starting to pull away a bit. Doing back into P6. Just 1.3 behind Verstappen. I think that's the kind of territory we want to focus in on, as Verstappen is going to have some extra pace, and we're only 1.3 down. Let's push. Let's push, close that gap. 1.6 now is Verstappen's fresh compound. What is he on, by the way? Hards. Our race position, our situation was wonderful. It was beautiful.
Okay, it's a safety.
Zero chance of wanting to pit here. With a lockup on turn 2, is that our crash?
So this was the Aston Martin. Oh, and there's the lockup. That's the last thing.
That's definitely not it. Did he rejoin in an unsafe manner? And we ride with Porsche as he gets us back underway on lap 30 of 52. I feel like we could almost just about make the one stopper work at this point, but a few laps of safety car I don't think is quite enough to take that, to do that, to think that that's the smart way to go. So we're gonna push on, and for now we are opening a healthy gap over Leclerc here coming out, and with fuel already just about done recovery wise, I'm liking our chances of succeeding with things. So let's go neutral for Porsche, of course, and then try to continually open that gap. And in the meantime, let's see if Doohan can start making some progress. That is Verstappen, and we certainly had a look, but tucked back in for the time being. And coming out of here is, of course, going to put us in a really, really good place. And we're going to get up beside him and get to the inside and complete the pass as we come around the final corner. Fantastic. That is P5. Still riding very close behind Bottas and Russell in the McLaren and the Mercedes. Russell up in third place right now. He's just over a second behind Leclerc, and Leclerc is just over a second behind Porsche in the race lead right now. So this is a real opportunity for us to maybe open up a little bit of a gap on some of these guys, but Doohan very much needs to get past these two. And for now, he's up beside Bottas. He'll have the inside for the tight right-hander here. A low-speed corner, but it really isn't. It's very much still medium, as we are already challenging Russell now for P3. Great opportunity to get back up into that position. And meanwhile, Leclerc is now 1.3, almost 1.4 behind Porsche, but getting away and pulling away are a different matter. But again, if we are going to be pitting again relatively soon, I don't mind pushing on. And we are going to squeeze our way. He squeezes us off as the battery's empty, but we're going to have the inside with the chicane, and we are up beside Russell. We're going to have the outside here, but I don't think that's... Oh, that shouldn't have been a problem. He should have been able
enabled.
to easily remain alongside him, but I suppose with an empty battery, that is the problem there. Let's check back in with Doohan. Back to aggressive. Back behind these two again. But again, coming up on that pit window, so we might as well be aggressive. But keep the fuel.
Increase, please.
Still maybe enough on it? No, not really.
To use the overtake.
Not really. Go neutral for now. It's Bottas coming up on Russell. Problem here from third is the guy in front of you is always going to have DRS. It's easy to challenge the one at the front. It's hard to challenge from third position, though, as they continue side by side. Meanwhile, 3-second gap for Porsche. 12.6. We're going to come out in the back end. Let's hope not everybody suddenly decided they want to go for a one-stopper. They're going to be slow, but it would be hard to get through the entirety of the field. Now, if a few cars stay out, it's easy to overtake a few. When the majority decide that they want to go for it, that's an entirely different matter. Meanwhile, Bottas now 2.7 behind Leclerc, who is now over 3 seconds behind Porsche. So Porsche pulling away a little bit more. And it just keeps slowing down. I keep trying to speed things up, and it keeps slowing down. We still have Verstappen just behind us. Perez, Sainz. Doohan is not in a good place because he's in traffic. Traffic's not good for him because of where our pit box location is and the fact that our team is 2 to 3 tenths slower than everybody else at pit stops. And it's not something that we've been able to drastically improve upon. And when you add in the pit box location as Russell dives off into the pits. With a 3.6 cushion, Porsche is not going to have a problem staying out of trouble and getting another lap or two advantage with the mediums for later. So Porsche, no problem. Doohan has issues. Now, directly behind Bottas, this seems like a good chance to overtake, but we didn't quite get up. We closed that gap quite a bit. He continues on, so I think we've got a great chance to make the overtake happen this time, as we're now the one behind with DRS and he won't have it, instead of being the third in line. But apparently we're looking for an overtake. Leclerc pits, Gasly pits, Ocon pits. Again, full-on incentive to remain out a little bit longer with Porsche. Just keep an eye on the gap. And once you see these guys pit, you can pit a lap or two later. And whoever has already pit that was in between, well, they're going to have traffic. They're going to have traffic, so they are not in clean air. Going to get a nice run. He's going to block us, and we're just going to suck it up and lift. Instead of cutting back to the inside. In fact, Verstappen ends up coming up on the inside instead. Jeez. We invited him in by literally getting off the gas and letting that happen. Schumacher pits. Verstappen tucked back in. We remain in P3. And gap is growing. It's now 6.9. So Porsche pulling away. Clearly, Bottas does not have the pace, as Doohan is so much faster. But Doohan not making progress. Has not done anything here to hurt himself anymore, though. But really terrible exit from there, and we are well behind. But we've got some momentum here on the exit. Look how much faster we are with the DRS. And we're going to get up the inside and fly past Bottas, completing the move. Do we complete the move?
Okay, that's good.
No,
that's
we
good.
let him back up the inside. We fighted that one. We were totally past him, but then invited him back in.
And
But
there's
there
an
we go,
overtake
completing the
from
move,
Williams.
emptying the battery to do so.
Let's
And
reduce
we'll push
lifting
on a
coast by
little bit
one
longer.
level.
Let's see what happens with the pit stops behind us. I want some clean air, even though it might put me out behind those guys. Fresher tires will make overtakes easy enough, but I don't want to lose time in the pits. I really don't want to lose time in the pits. We're going to lose time as it is, that couple tenths. We might lose a couple tenths being slower for a lap, but just being honest with you, I think we are better off pitting in the clean air and not having to deal with what's going to happen where we end up sitting in our box and having those guys overtake us anyway. Doohan just does not have the pace of Porsche, which is good because we're holding up Bottas and Verstappen and Magnussen, and then it's 8 seconds to Tsunoda. Meanwhile, gaps to leader, we're going to come out in theoretically 7th place in front of Sainz, maybe just behind Leclerc when Porsche pits. Leclerc is the only threat there. He's going to be much faster than these other guys. Now, how are we doing on tire wear? Well, these guys are all in the 60s still, but they're going to drop below that soon enough. Leclerc, first one who's already pit and on the mediums, and the only one who's going to be a threat positionally. Add in some extra pace, because we may have to do some overtaking on this front 6. And Leclerc potentially, but especially on the front 6. 7.8 ahead, by the way. Healthy gap, and into the pits we go. It'll be lap 42. We'll have just over 10 laps to run on the softs. And we are alone in the pits. 2.681 and 2.571. So again, Doohan getting the faster stop. Porsche comes back out in P5 ahead of Leclerc. Doohan's gap is holding the same to Porsche and Leclerc. Now, getting around quickly on Tsunoda, we can hopefully leave Leclerc behind. That's where we want to be aggressive. Leave Leclerc behind, as he's the bigger threat besides the front 3. Now, we got 9 seconds to cover. That part's a threat, but 30.6 ahead, 0.8 ahead. We've got Leclerc well out of DRS range now. Sector 2, yellow. Somebody ran wide, and it wasn't Doohan for a change. All right, front 3 are tucked in all together. Porsche already down to 7.6 behind. Go ahead and go back to standard for a little bit. Close them up naturally for the time being. It's lap 44 though. Don't wait too long. But Doohan, we don't have time to mess around. So let's get a little more aggressive with Doohan. Start closing that
Push
gap.
hard.
He is 1.7 ahead of Russell, so we've got out of DRS range, and we're 6.3 behind Leclerc, who has still not managed to get around Tsunoda. We're already 2.5 seconds away from him. New fastest lap for Porsche. The fastest lap bonus would have been nice, but there is no bonus this season. I did catch a glimpse of those guys. They are getting within sight. Porsche, I saw them. They are not that far ahead of us anymore. We're down to 0.2. We're going to be faster once we've done that. We're down to 4.9. Meanwhile, Doohan just 2.5 seconds back now. Very much has Tsunoda in sight. Down to 0.1. 4 seconds back. Meanwhile, Doohan just inside a second now. We have caught Tsunoda. P5 is easy enough. Oh, Porsche locked up. Off the track at the chicane. He is back on. He just ruined his race. He would have ruined his race from the front as well, as we would have only been, a couple seconds ahead of these guys.
That would be 5 laps.
Damn. Porsche. I think he would have been in P4 right now anyway. Okay, well, back to Doohan. He's gotten around Tsunoda. Tsunoda while this was happening. Porsche and Doohan both making mistakes. Both with mistakes today. 7 seconds back. And then Doohan spins! Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. Doohan driving like a rookie. Porsche already pulls back more than a second. He's still faster than those guys, but at 6 seconds down and with 3 laps to go, I just don't think he's going to catch him. It's not over yet, and we still have a good amount of battery for Pourchaire, but that's a difficult ask now. 5.7 doing, still 1.5 back after his spin, and then, you know, it's 5.5 seconds to Leclerc now, so... Meanwhile, Pourchaire is coming up within 5 seconds and a big lockup there. And that's going to complete that overtake without ever having to get the job done. Sonoda, 4.3 behind. That lockup and that 5 seconds that we lost. Leclerc just caught up to us? Really? Wow, how did he manage that? I didn't see that coming. I did not see that he was coming up on us at all. And that's because of the mistake. This is because of the mistake and then falling below 60%. Last lap, and we finally hit positive delta right as we go to begin the final lap. We'd be back in the lead. If Pourchaire doesn't make that mistake, we're in the lead. We are in the lead entering the final lap. Doohan's in no man's land, so P6 is his. 2 big mistakes from him today, and full attack from here the rest of the way. There's that overtake easily happening at just 2.5 seconds behind the front. They went for the one stopper, they made it work. I was looking at it thinking you could just about make it work, and we probably would have held on for the win, but of course the mistake would have bumped us down to 4th. Possibly behind Leclerc with some pretty used tires. Those guys all pit a few laps later, so it would have been a different matter trying to hang on from the front. But Pourchaire, 1.6 behind. 1.6 behind,
Okay,
even after the mistake. He would have won. He would have won the race if he didn't make the mistake. So he cost himself that one and only ends up in P4. And Verstappen ends up claiming the win, and Bottas in 2nd. That hurts. At least it's Magnussen in 3rd. That one doesn't hurt. Doohan, the first second driver to cross the line, so at least we help out, pick up, you know, the extra points that way to just about, I think, equalize with Verstappen with Red Bull. So got that going at least, but
A wonderful.
should have had more. Should have had a 1-4. I mean, really should have had a 1-4, or at least a 1-5, but both drivers with multiple mistakes. Look how much faster we were, though. So 5 and 3, that's 8 points. So actually, we just equalized. Bottas. Verstappen ends up claiming the couple extra points. That's right. The first 2 drivers get extra points. It's not 1 across the board each. It's 2 extra points at the top. So, man, missed opportunities. Pourchaire stays 4th in the points, 1 behind Norris, 3 behind Leclerc. And in the constructors, there it is. Ferrari remains 2nd on 69 points, gaining 4 on the day. We gain 8, which is equal to McLaren. So we are 1 ahead, 4 points behind Ferrari. Red Bull is a ways ahead. It's still a tight battle, but we are pulling away now from Alpine and Mercedes, who had both came up with a decent amount of points. I mean, Alpine's got a win and a couple podiums. We have 2 wins and 3 podiums. We haven't pulled that far away. McLaren has 1 win and 6 podiums. They've been more consistent. Ferrari, 2 wins, 5 podiums. We've had our 3rd fastest lap of the season. 4 wins for Red Bull and 7 podiums, and we should have had our 3rd win today, keeping them at 3, and then that would have definitely closed that gap just a bit. That's round 10 of 22, almost halfway through the season. Disappointing end in that one. The 2-stopper was not the wrong way to go. They were a few laps better off. Their tire wear was better off. We would have had a problem in the final laps. Probably could have hung on without the mistake anyway. With the mistake, guaranteed, Pourchaire finishes right where he was anyway. I think the pit stop was the right call. We had the pace. We had the ability to catch and beat them. We ended up a 1.5 seconds back of Magnussen, and those guys were less than a second apart front to back. We could have easily overtaken them without the mistake. So I think we would have ended up in the same place either way without the mistake, as in we would have won without the mistake. But with the mistake, it's P4. At least we got back ahead of Leclerc. But man, oh man, that was disappointing end. And then, double mistake from doing, as he both ran wide and spun out in that one. So neither guy got the job done. Weak drivers. Difficult to ask to get them up. I still think that there is something to the whole rookie thing, because the list of mistakes this season from Porsche is significantly shorter than it is for Doohan. Porsche made a mistake today. Doohan made two. That's going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.